Filipino martial arts, also known as Escrima, Kali, Arnis, FMA, stick and knife fighting from the Philippine nations. If you love rope flow and the benefits for coordination, proprioception, body mechanics, movement, you can take your skills that you're learning with this and transfer them to combative applications and do patterns like this Heaven 6 pattern while incorporating your entire body, your hands, your footwork, and your coordination to get into combative positions. Now, the Filipinos were conquered by the Spanish in the 15th century, and very quickly the Spanish conscripted them onto their ships because they recognized their value as the best close quarters knife and sword fighters in the world. Because every village in the Philippines had some form that they practiced from when they were young as boys until they were grown up and older. So to get started with this, we have three things that we want to work on. One are the basic strikes themselves. Two is the footwork, which, by the way, all modern boxing footwork comes from Filipino martial arts. Up until the 19th century, when the Americans took over from the Philippines, and boxing was already a popular sport with them, it was known as English boxing. They would stand like this and punch each other one at a time, till the Americans integrated the Filipino martial arts techniques, took it back to the States, and we have what became known as modern boxing with duck and weave and Filipino triangular footwork. So these are called rattans, training tools of Filipino martial arts. They're made of rattan, right? Sticks that are about 70 centimeters in length. And this is an ideal size. However, I've often trained this with little bits of bamboo that people use to stake plants that they're planting, which are much lighter. And you can train movement patterns for thousands of reps without getting injured, right? Or you can find some big, fresh bamboo, chop it down. This one's a bit thicker. You can still practice with this, right? Or just went into the bush behind me, found a stick. There we go. We got two longer weapons to practice with, which are a bit lighter, but we can still practice our movement patterns. Or, there we go, a bit more close to the length of a normal rattan. Now I'm a little short, but I can still practice one long, one short, espada y daga, right? So to begin, we're gonna start with the first couple basic strikes, which are angles 1 and 2. Now, Filipino martial arts, usually when it's taught, defines angled strikes for different areas of the body which we're trying to target. So angles 1 and 2, this is 1 and 2. If you're looking at me as the target, this is to your collarbone or your temple. It's a forehand. And then the backhand angle 2 is to the other collarbone or the other temple. It would look like it's coming in here or here or here and here from your perspective, right? So we have angles 1 and angles 2. Angles 1 and angles 2. Now you notice naturally I start adding footwork, but we can just practice this with a very simple step, 1 and 2. Now, two things to keep in mind is the hand is in line with the weapon, right? So this visualizes and is representative of the sword or a knife, the length of a machete, right? And that's what they would be using. Kukris, all these other knives that are longer in length and familiar to the jungle peoples of Southeast Asia. That's what this comes from, right? Simulating those weapons. And then a stick is a very effective pain compliance weapon if you get bone, right? And can be very damaging too. So angles 1 and angles 2 are foundation. Now, very critical here, if I line myself up this way, is you'll notice I'm not windshield wipering like this. I'm reaching with the weapon and my knuckles are in line with the direction of the strike because that's where the edge of the weapon would be. And this has to be precise if I'm using a blade, but it doesn't have to be if I'm using a stick. Now, typically you would be striking and moving onto your right foot from the right side and onto your left foot from the left side. And this is where we can start to, after we've done a number of reps of angles 1 and angles 2, incorporate a triangular footwork. So if I put these on the ground in an X, you'll notice that but I'm stepping on an X angle, on a 45 degree, right? And if there's an enemy there and he's still facing that way, all of his weapons are now going to be lined up facing this way. And all of my weapons are going to be lined up facing him when I take this step on the X. Same thing with the backhand. So forehand angle 1, backhand angle 2, and we can add other stuff from there, right? But for this drill now, after we get familiar with these are angles 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, train your offhand as well, because why not? Then from there, you add the coordination of the footwork with the strike. And you'll notice my back foot comes with me and isn't left behind, which leaves me immobile and vulnerable to things like groin kicks, right? So I step and I strike in one motion, right? My footwork is coordinated with my hands and my intent to use the weapon for its intended purpose, right? So from here, we can practice what's called this X pattern footwork. And if we imagine an X, we can go forward in both directions and we can go backwards in both directions. And every time we want our hips to come with us. So if I'm going forward right, my left foot slides, I'm back to center. Forward left, left foot leads. I'm never crossing over, exposing my back, right? Then if I want to go back with the right foot, the left foot is still where most of my energy is. So if we practice this a number of times, you can go forward, forward, back, and back, and then integrate into this with angles 1 and 2. So you have forward angle 1, forward angle 2, backwards angle 1, backwards angle 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can skip through this, or we can take it nice and slow and controlled, right? With practicing the hands and feet, imagining there's always the target in the middle. It's important to remember this principle of reaching for the target, right? I want to use the length of the weapon that I have, not just keep my hands close and sort of flail around like a school kid doing this stuff, right? I want to be able to put some power behind it, right? Connect from my hand, my body. If you're doing any of the WEC stuff, I might be coiled here, short side, into long coil, right? This hand here ready, protecting in front of the heart. So the core principles of FMA are not just about the weapons themselves. It's about what your body is doing and how you're getting into positions. And for that to work, you need hips and you need feet. And the feet only work if the hips are connected to the entire body. And I don't necessarily recommend using sticks on the X, but having something there to visualize where you're going to go. There it goes, right? Where you're going to be from the starting point, relative, right? Because I'm not going to walk at a guy. I'm going to walk to the side and realign my weapons towards him, right? As that cross comes in, I'm parrying him on an angle. Everything's here to follow up, right? So that's the value of what is called X or triangular footwork, because I'm always working with some kind of triangle relative to the person attacking me there in the middle. Boom, I'm here. My new line up to the target completes the triangle, right? So you can go forward, you can go back. So I really want you guys to practice angles 1 and angle 2, angle 1 and angle 2. And these two angles, right, will unlock our ability to do angles 1 and 2 with 2 sticks. 1, 1, 2, right? Power strike, follow-up cut. Or putting power into every cut. You can go forward with just angle 1s, backwards. Practice our angle, start with the left, follow up. And from here, because of those 2 angles, we unlock some fun in the Heaven 6 pattern, also called Sinawali 6, depending on what system in the Philippines you learn from, is a very complicated pattern of 3 strikes per side for 6 strikes total, Heaven 6, that takes your brain a lot of getting used to. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But once you do, you can have endless fun with it. But for now, to learn this, it's 3 strikes from the right side and 3 strikes from the left to complete. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. To start, one hand is chambered, which means ready to go, like a bullet in the chamber. My stick or my knife is in the chamber, ready to go, on my right shoulder, my right side. And the left hand is chambered underneath, both sticks pointed to heaven, heaven 6. And from here, I go right hand, left hand, angle 2, right hand, angle 2, and then I'm on the other side, chamber back underneath, right? So left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, chamber, and we're back to where we started, right? So we can think of this as another way is this one comes from over. Your brain will latch onto one of these different ways. Over, under, over, chamber, over, under, over, chamber, over, under, over, chamber, over, under, over, chamber. I'll turn around so you can do it with me, right? We're chambered here, both weapons pointed at heaven. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Chamber, right hand, right hand, chamber, left hand, right hand, left hand, chamber, over, under, over, chamber, over, under, over, chamber. Without the chamber, just making each strike flow into the next, I can aim for this to be a head strike with every strike. Or I can make this fast and flow, just like with the rope. I can use my wrists and just practice a bit of flow. Or I can go for my elbows, or I can go for my shoulders and really put power into it and get some speed. Or what I encourage you to do is be nice and deliberate and slow with it and feel the rotational movement, the coils inside your body as you chamber and strike with one and the other stick, right? This one's chambering, this one's striking. This one's now striking, and this one's chambering. So the transfer from what you learn with the rope, this rotational movement ability, and there's a lot of weird, cool stuff you could do here. But your skills that you learn from this begin to manifest themselves in real martial ability when you train with something that's meant to do a bit of damage and strike. Okay, in this video we talked about angles 1 and angles 2 being your foundation of FMA, your 2 basic strikes that you're gonna revert back to whatever happens, so you might as well start practicing them with more precision, because if goes to the fan, you're just gonna start doing this. But guess what? That's angle 1 and angle 2. And if you practice them a bit, they're your best friend because they're natural already, right? Any caveman is gonna do this. But you can refine this and add the footwork, which is the second thing that we talked about, right? Your ability to coordinate your strikes with this footwork. So practice your triangular X footwork by itself, then add angles 1 and 2, remembering to never cross your feet and show your back. From there, we've talked about heaven 6 with 2 sticks. Let's go to the easy variation. Can do backhands as well. Add some stabs, but right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. These are just consecutive angle 1, 2, 2, left hand angle 1, right hand angle 2, left hand angle 2, reset. So from just angles 1 and 2, we unlock a whole awesome ability to do this heaven 6 pattern, which is quite complicated and more advanced in Filipino martial arts. But of course, the angles are only there to guide us. There's infinite angles in a 360-degree arc for whatever you need to do. And angles 1 and 2 are just the guide for this top headshot, collarbone quadrant. This stuff is so much fun. For me, this is like playful martial arts, but it's also potentially the most deadly, most effective that there is. Krav Maga steals a lot from this. Like I said, all of modern boxing is basically just this idea of the footwork, evading, countering, but instead of boxing gloves, you have knives. Let me know how you go. Hope you enjoy. Shoot any questions in the comments.